What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the 5280 podcast on the MHRT Network. My name is Mundungus Creevy, alongside my co-hosts, as always, Cameron Parker, Glenn Hauser, and Gage Madrid. What's up, fellas?
What up?
It's I was gonna say it's nice to finally have a full squad again and record a show.
Listen,
yes, it has been a while.
Some of us have stuff to do. Okay,
we have removed Mike from injured reserve. He hasn't spewed out a bad Travis Hunter take in a while.
Yeah,
so he's been back on the roster.
Ask Glenn. We had one yesterday.
Yeah,
I was gonna say or take in general, but you know,
don't say we had one yesterday. I was listening to you have one yesterday. The difference. I was not participating in the Travis Hunter
the discourse.
Yeah,
for full transparency.
Just because the guy doesn't know how to run a route, it's not my problem. All right. So, there's Gage.
I cannot.
We sure Mike isn't like a burner for, Dov Kleiman or whatever,
Bro.
What I said basically was it's going to be interesting to see how Travis Hunter plays receiver opposite of PS2. And it'll be fun to see Travis Hunter play corner opposite of Cortland Sutton. Because I know who's going to get the better of those.
But isn't that narrative the same narrative for any rookie wide receiver coming into the league?
Especially probably the most fluid route runner that we've seen come in since Justin Jefferson.
Who?
Travis Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Why do you think he went in the top?
Let me just pull up some of these videos I got here, and we'll talk about that later. All right, so we obviously don't have a whole lot to talk about. You guys talked a little bit about undrafted free agents last week. We still have the whole list to go through, and we'll go through that. Talk a little bit about maybe positional needs, what the Broncos still need. But the first thing I want to get into, and I know you guys talked about it last week as well, is rookie minicamp. I'm not a huge fan of rookie minicamp, or at least taking takes out of rookie minicamp, because you can't really get a lot out of rookie minicamp other than like the quarterback position. But we did have rookie minicamp. We saw a lot of RJ Harvey. And I kind of just wanted to get your guys' take on what you took away from rookie minicamp.
I think the way for me, reason why I love rookie minicamp is obviously the rookies go through their own rookie symposium, right? Like at the combine, like they go through like their like symposium, if you will, like their transition into the league, right? But I think for rookie minicamp, it's like the team's symposium, if you will, like their introduction to Sean Payton's, structure, the way that he organizes things going into practice. And that's kind of like my biggest takeaway of rookie minicamp. Obviously, when you hear some things about like, walkthroughs of practice, that sort of thing, or how people take away in terms of things like RJ Harvey or even Pat Bryant, showcasing himself quite well, or even some of those undrafted free agents like Johnny Walker, and even Karen Reed. It's just like, you do get a lot of that in terms of like good takeaways from that, but I think it's more about for them, the rookies, being indoctrinated into playbook, and how Sean Payton runs things.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that. It's something that is super important just for the initial install of what the Broncos are trying to do. You're installing the culture, you're installing the basic terminology. So I would agree with Mike to an extent that it might be a little bit harder to take some things away just because half of the guys who are participating in rookie minicamp aren't even going to be there for training camp. But there are still going to be your standout players such as RJ Harvey, such as Pat Bryant, such as, Karen Reed, Johnny Walker, all these guys who have made plays out there. They're going to stand out. The cream always rises to the top. But it definitely is something that should be taken with a grain of salt that it's the first action that these guys are getting in the NFL whatsoever. So they are still trying to get their feet wet and get acclimated. And just like Cam said, it's all about just trying to install what the Broncos are trying to do.
Not only that, I equate it to like freshman orientation. You know, there's some value in not having the upperclassmen there, and just, you know, maybe having their opinions on how things should run, or we did this last year and things like that. That doesn't need to be put into their heads at this point. You know, it's nice for the rookies to also get the camaraderie, being together. You know, the ones that were drafted share a common bond immediately. The ones that were signed to the undrafted free agent contracts to some degree as well. So I think there is value to it. And,
yeah. What I was going to say, and to the point of like, in the grand scheme of things, you know, does it matter? Not necessarily. You can continue that theme well into OTAs, you know, and even into training camp, and maybe somewhat into training camp, just because like we all know that like the nitty gritty of how players are separating themselves are those preseason games, you know, and but don't tell a player that, right? Like that's the thing. It's like, don't tell a player that, because, you know, specifically for rookies and specifically for rookie mini camp, that is their first initial, we got to make an impression. And, you know, so starting from day one, that's where players like RJ Harvey, with what you're hearing from Sean Payton and even Pat Bryant, why you're starting to kind of see them maybe separate themselves a little bit from the pack. And usually, you know, there's that famous adage of, you know, this is when, you know, boys become men, if you will. And obviously I'm not talking about the musical group, but like, you know, hopefully they're singing really good tunes over there at rookie mini camp. And, you know, and so far I think it seems like things are trending in the direction for at least a couple of those players.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that this is also a time where a lot of fans don't really appreciate what is being installed here, because a lot of these kids haven't been in a huddle before. They don't even know where to line up in the huddle. They've never heard a verbal snap count before. All of this stuff is so foreign, and it's second nature to veteran players in the league. That's why it's so beneficial to not have the veterans there, because they've already been there, done that. They know where to line up in the huddle. They've heard a snap count before, all this basic stuff that you kind of take for granted playing football. It's stuff that you have to be able to install with these guys. So, yeah, this is just a time where you can see, obviously, the cream rise to the top, but it's just a basic 101 install of football that's happening right now.
Yeah. C. Chang wants to know if we know when OTAs start.
Yes, week from today, May 27th.
There we go. So getting into UDFAs, but also sticking with rookie minicamp, was there anybody or anything that stood out during rookie minicamp?
I think there were a couple players, and we touched a little bit about them in our show last week, Gage and I, and they were Johnny Walker and Karen Reed. I mean, the one I will say that you're starting to kind of see a little bit more of is Karen Reed. And because, like, you know, last week there really wasn't a lot of noise about him. There was more noise about Johnny Walker. And obviously, given, you know, Kliss's post about, you know, Walker and Reed really kind of separating themselves a little bit as far as those undrafted free agents, like, Reed is such a fascinating one, aside from the fact that, you know, once again, that the Broncos just, for some reason, love Utah players, you know, and that goes all the way back to even Garrett Bowles and Tim Patrick. But, like, they love Utah players, and Karen Reed is he's a fascinating one because he's, you know, he's like 6 foot, like 220 pounds of like an instinctual linebacker. Speed isn't necessarily his game, but he makes up for it a lot. And I think his athleticism, I think at times is a bit underrated. And, you know, you put him in a room where, you know, given the injury of Greenlaw and how they, and Singleton and his recovery and how they want to handle it, those are golden opportunities. And it's not just him. It's a golden opportunity for a lot of those players. And, you know, fellow Utah linebacker Lavelle Bailey is certainly in that with his injury and recovering from, you know, the devastating one last year. So there's a bit of a door open for some of those players like Karen Reed to really make an instant impact. So I really do look for players like that to really kind of separate it. And, you know, we'll see if it can, you know, bear fruit more and more come to OTAs and, of course, training camp and preseason.
Yes, and a couple of other guys as well, wide receiver position. You've got Joaquin Davis, Courtney Jackson. Both of those guys have stood out a little bit. Wide receiver room is a little bit loaded right now. It might be hard for one of those undrafted guys to make it, but practice squad spots could be up for grabs here. So definitely keep an eye on both of those players as well. And also Caleb Lohner stood out. I know he's not really an undrafted free agent, but obviously our back in 7th round pick. He's a guy that we should definitely keep an eye on. Had a really nice catch over the middle of the field. And so, yeah, those are really the top standouts in terms of maybe the back end roster guys that we're not giving as much love to.
All right, so we got a big list of undrafted free agents. I know you guys went through a couple of them last week, but I kind of want to just hit the whole list and see if there's anybody on that list that you maybe not expecting, but are wanting as part of the 53 and not part of the practice squad. Gage, you want to run us through that list?
Sure. I can go ahead and present it as well here. Just give me 1 second.
I'm just impressed that Mike's wearing a Big Debbie t-shirt when Gage is using the cream rises to the top.
We understand the assignment. What can we say?
I have it there on my screen, Mike. I can't see what you're doing. So, or wait, now I can. We're good.
Yeah,
that's probably for the best, Gage. Actually,
all right, we're cool.
Yeah, anything below level,
All right, so there is our list right there.
Hold on, let me just tuck it away.
So in each column here, I guess I'll come up a little bit. You've got your player, you've got the signing bonus they were given, and then the total guaranteed money. And so you'll see that 3 of these guys got over $200,000 in guaranteed money: Johnny Walker, Karen Reed, and Clay Webb. So those are all 3 guys right there that the Broncos clearly valued highly and are coveting. Then additionally, after that, we've got guys like Xavier Truss. He's a tackle out of Georgia that I think could definitely make the roster potentially. JB Brown is another guy. I do think JB Brown, the linebacker out of Kansas, the Broncos have a little bit of a positional need there. So him and Reed, that's going to be a really interesting battle. Jaden Robinson, I don't know exactly if Robinson's going to make the roster, but we'll see. We already kind of talked about Courtney Jackson a little bit. Christian Williams, weren't you talking a little bit about him earlier, Cam?
Last week.
What'd you say about him?
I just I kind of said that, one of the biggest staples of Missouri and their defense has been their front seven, and Christian Williams was like a very, he kind of fit the mold of exactly what the Broncos have been looking for really since Peyton had been getting there, and that is he's a team captain. He's a team captain, and he was the heart and soul of that defensive line for Missouri. And so, yeah, he would definitely be one that I would kind of circle a little bit. So not just Johnny Walker from Missouri, but Christian Williams, of course.
Yes.
He's 295 or something, so just a tick under 300.
Yes, definitely keep an eye on him. Joe Mikowski, the tackle out of Oklahoma State. So him and Truss will be kind of competing there, but there's a pretty significant difference in terms of the amount of money that they got. So clearly the Broncos feel a lot higher about Truss than they do Malkeski, or however you pronounce his name. Joshua Pickett, the defensive back. He might have a chance just because, again, kind of a positional need thing for practice squad guys. Joaquin Davis, we talked about him quite a bit. Jerwan Newton, that's another guy at wide receiver that we might need to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. Marcus Cox, honestly, I can't remember who that is off the top of my head. Someone help me out there.
He just got that bonus based off his last name.
Then you've got Jordan Turner, linebacker, I believe, and then Kyrese White. Those guys got no guaranteed money. So.
Jordan Turner was a late one, if I'm not mistaken. Like he was one that was with Wisconsin, transferred over to Michigan State. Of note, he was kicked off the Wisconsin football team but I assume so that he has ties to Jim Leonard, and this is just a one where I'm sure Leonard probably did him a solid little bit. But we also know that Wisconsin kind of turns out some decent linebackers. Obviously, it had been with Michigan State, but they turn out some good linebackers. So he might be a name that's kind of like I hate to use this quote because like every single undrafted free agent is a diamond in the rough. But if you're going to look based off of signing bonus, the diamond in the rough might be a guy like a Jordan Turner or some of those players that are, with the lesser signing bonus, because it's going to force them to, play even higher and stuff to make the 53.
Yeah, yes. They're paid like a cubic zirconia.
That's right.
So, yeah, again, some of my favorites out of that list are obviously Walker, Reed, Webb. Do not look up Clay Webb's off the field issues. Just don't do it. And then
I recommend.
Yeah, would not recommend. And then obviously Davis is another guy, Joaquin Davis, that I would keep an eye on. So there's always at least one player that makes the 53-man roster every single year. So I don't think that's going to be any different this year. If there's one guy that I think might make it just because you don't want to let him go, it's Johnny Walker.
Wow. It's an interesting one, just given, there's that room of, Wazarike and, and Jordan Jackson, right? And those are going to be two guys that, probably Walker's going to be, battling a little bit, and we'll see. He's got a lot of potential for sure. I know we talked about him a little bit last week, but my lottery ticket, if you will, for making the 53 and ensuring that he's not on the practice squad, because I feel like he's far too talented of a player that the moment he's on the practice squad, I just have that feeling that a team's going to be able to poach him, and that'd be Joaquin Davis. Like, he is a lottery ticket at wide receiver. He's almost the wide receiver version of like a Caleb Lawner, like 6'4", a 4.4 40. Like a 220. I mean, he's got the size, like the perfect size, that if you can be able to create it and make him a very stable route runner with that kind of presence, like, you're talking about, at least at a high ceiling, if he could be able to get there, you're talking about a guy that is a bit of a physical version of AJ Green. Like, it is like it because I just think that if you're able to hit with a player like that, I really do think that they might have something there. And specifically, given, Sean Payton is also not a great fan of, should I say, a star-studded wide receiver room. That's going to open the door for some of those players like a Joaquin Davis, a Jerwan Newton, or even, a Courtney Jackson, to at least make some hay a little bit. And, A.T. Perry didn't exactly, he stayed on the team, but he didn't exactly push himself, to the 53-man roster. So, there's a bit of a door open, if you will, for some of those types of players.
A.T. Perry is the most referenced insignificant player the Broncos have probably ever had.
It's true, man. I mean, you look at the film, he's got the speed, he's got the size, he's got the catch radius, but for whatever reason, the Saints opted to move on from him, and he could never get on the field here in Denver. So it makes me wonder, is there something maybe mentally that's blocking him out from reaching his true potential, or is he just not getting the right opportunity? I don't know, but the physical tools are there with A.T. Perry. I just don't know why it's never materialized.
Well, what about you guys, for Mike and Glenn? Who are some of the players than what you guys have been kind of reading up on? Who are some of the players that you guys feel could make the 53 or make a name for themselves?
I mean, I think Reed is and Gage actually turned me on to Johnny Walker, so I started paying attention to him. We should call him like Johnny Walker Orange or something like that. But I think the guys that actually have an opportunity really are the ones that are in positions like the linebacker position or the defensive line. The wide receiver is going to be tough, Cam. I know you want to keep a guy, or you think that we're going to lose him. Who would he replace? I mean, how do you protect a player like that. I just it's going to be tough. You know, we talked about lack of depth on this team in certain areas, and now it seems like we have a surplus of players. And I'm looking at, like, you know, all these signings and the draftees, and it's like, wow, you know, what surprises, what veterans are going to be bounced off of this squad in order to keep some of these guys. It's going to be very, very interesting. I think it's going to be a tough cut down.
Well, and I think that specifically from that wide receiver point, like, that's what I think makes guys like Trent Sherfield a bit interesting, because it's like it's a little Jordan Humphrey argument, right? And, you know, he's a player that all coaches love, but he's also a player that, you know, you could easily cut him and replace it with someone else, or, you know, you could easily cut him and bring him back, right? And the New York Giants did that with him. Like a week later, they cut him and, you know, and re-signed him. So, like,
you could cut him and give RJ his number 5. I mean, yeah.
By the way, did you guys catch that interview with Megan Payton? How like he said it was open. So, like, are you trying to say that Trent Sherfield is not on the roster right now? Like,
I don't think they even knew who he was.
Yeah.
I think that Sherfield's probably going to become like the new little Jordan Humphrey, in the sense that he's going to be the guy who gets cut, gets brought back. Right. He's going to be that roster procedural move guy whenever they need to put a guy on the practice squad and all that stuff. I think that Sherfield's going to be that guy now.
Well, the good news is, you know, if you're Michael Burton, you're smiling ear to ear, because that was Michael Burton for like 2 months, if you will. So I'm sure Michael Burton would be smiling ear to ear.
Yep. But that's the thing too. Sorry, Mike.
I was going to say, I would love to answer any of the questions about these guys, but honestly, I don't know who they are. And I did exactly what you told me not to do, and now I'm reading about Clay Webb, as I have my Powerade bottle sitting right here, so that's kind of weird. Throwing that out there.
So
you know, like how they send the rookies out to get coffees or like do the coffee order in their uniform. Like the tradition ends today. Like,
or you just know exactly who you're not asking.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Right. Just order your coffee. Order your coffee black. You know, just like whatever. I mean,
no, you don't.
But with all these rookies, you know, that are trying to fight to make the team, the calling card is really.
Gage trying to keep things
really going to be special teams, man. Like,
he's trying to push through it, he just can't.
I'm trying, man. But no, special teams is really going to be where these guys make the team. You know, if you're doing the dirty work, if you're blocking, if you're doing all the stuff that you're asked to do, that's one thing. But special teams is where it's really going to separate, you know, the good players from the great players who really have potential to make this team.
Gage, you were supposed to keep us in line, and you referenced doing the dirty work. I mean, we're trying to get away from those shenanigans.
Well, and I was going to say, obviously, with special teams, we know that a lot of former Bronco players, you know, made their name because of special teams, right? Everybody remembers Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis. Yeah. You know, right? Terrell Davis made his big play on special teams, thus earning his rise to stardom, if you will, in air quotes, because of that one play. So, yeah, it matters. Special teams, special plays. You know, like it matters.
Yep.
I love that. I love that story. Like with Terrell Davis, like he's told to go in and he's like, man, I just had like 4 hot dogs
in Tokyo, like a Japanese hot dog. I don't know what.
And that is why you wait to eat until you know for sure you're done.
1,000%.
All right, so we did, and I'm not sure if you guys went over this last week or not. I'm assuming you did. I don't know. The jersey numbers that the draft picks selected.
I don't think we did, actually.
So we'll just kind of go through them real quick. Barron took number 12. RJ Harvey's got 37. Pat Bryant is 13. Jones gets 95. Robinson gets 51. Crawshaw, the future rookie of the year, gets 39. And Lohner gets 84.
There's a few that pass the aura test, if you will. There's only a few that pass the aura test. for numbers. And that would be Pat Bryant, getting 13, Lawner getting 84. And I will say, and I will say
84, 80, 30, like those numbers. How do you feel about players like that wearing, especially 84?
Actually, I think that Gage and I did kind of have a fun conversation last week. We didn't miss it. We had somewhat of a fun conversation. Maybe it was not with Gage, but it may have been with mainly that Wednesday. But like, we talked about something in the sense of like, it would be great in the sense for these numbers, like for them to, because like in college, right? Like, they're like Mike, obviously, like for Nebraska, right? Like Matt Rule rewards players like with single digit numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that the retired numbers should be something that a player earns, like in the sense of like, I think for like, let's just say RJ Harvey. I like, he's going through camp. He's crossing his T's, dotting his I's, and passing every single test that Sean Payton has asked of him. And Sean Payton, in probably a conversation, where it's just him, Terrell Davis, and, RJ Harvey, Terrell Davis, in essence, gives the blessing, if you will, for it to be like, you can wear 30. Or Sean be like, you have now earned the right to wear 30. I think those types of things would make it really, really cool. So I think that, in essence, wearing 84, wearing 30, wearing 24, wearing 88, maybe even 18. Like, I think that, those are things where I think, you earning that, I think would mean a lot more than here. We have a free number. You get 24.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this goes into a much deeper conversation of, should there be certain numbers that are retired that aren't, such as 84, such as 30, such as 88?
Well, obviously, I do agree. I think that some of those numbers should be retired, but it also shouldn't be one where just because it's retired, again, like you should still be able to wear, right, like that number. But it's all based on you have to earn it, though.
Like 88 should not be retired. 84 should not be retired. The only maybe 24 and 53, but like we got to just be super selective these days.
Yeah.
You especially when I think that they're going to end up having to expand the rosters once they add that 18th game. I think they're going to have more players.
Yeah,
you can't run out of numbers.
That's true. That is a fact. But Glenn, how would you feel if someone took Steve Watson's number?
I'd be pissed. No, I'm just... plenty of people. Shannon Sharp actually had that number initially, right? He was number 81. Yeah. So
I've even seen the idea thrown around of throwing in 3-digit numbers.
Oof. If it was, it would have to be 000. Just leave it at that. 000.
I'd be cool.
And give it to Clay Webb. And give it to Clay Webb.
No, he'd have 666.
No, I honestly kind of like, some triple numbers, but not many. Like a number 500, that'd be kind of cool. Or, like maybe make certain numbers eligible for certain players. Like Teddy Bridgewater wore number 50 in the preseason. Why couldn't he keep that number 50?
Mac Jones was the same way with New England, right? Like he wore 50 with the Patriots.
Yeah. I understand, like, for eligibility reasons, there's some numbers that should be off limits for some players, but you really should make it to where, a quarterback could wear 20 if he wants to, stuff like that.
It looks so weird.
It would.
Up there, number 79. Like, yeah.
Like Matthew Golden choosing 22. I love 22. 22 is my favorite number, but in no way, shape, or form does it belong on a wide receiver.
That's a running back number.
Yeah. Or safety or whatever.
Safety, yeah.
All right, so we just talked UDFAs. We talked rookie minicamp. We had the draft. Looking at the Broncos roster right now, are there still any holes that we need to address? For example, we talked a lot about running back leading up to the draft. there's still a healthy Nick Chubb out there. Is that an option? Are we not worried about running backs anymore? What spots do we have that we still have concerns about?
I mean, you can always add a veteran. Frankly, I wouldn't even be surprised if they had another corner, a vet corner, just because you can. I think where I've kind of like come along with this is that like when you're building a roster, really at the end of the day, like there is only one position that you can only have so much of, and that's quarterback. Everything else you can have an abundance of, if you will, like corner, edge rushers, linebackers. Really, it's all about building your roster, right? As long as you have that quarterback position solidified, that's really what you should be focused on at that point. But like everything else, you can build everything out at that point. So vet corner, linebacker would be another one, like a vet linebacker. I think if you're kind of nitpicking a little bit, they obviously probably don't need safety, right? They probably don't need a safety. So running back, I would say running back, but it certainly seems like RJ Harvey is, what is it, the Mr. Superstar right now. So I don't know if they bring
and at
one
that
in.
point, you're talking about carrying 4, right? Like if you're going running backs, because you don't want to cut McLaughlin.
They already have 4, actually. So I don't think that they –
Right, but let's say that they bring in Chubb, right? Just for example. You're obviously going to keep Chubb. You're going to keep McLaughlin. You're going to keep Estime. You're going to keep Harvey. So we're carrying 4?
I don't even know.
Are you?
And maybe it's just me, but like I would think that even if they brought in Nick Chubb, I don't know if that's a guarantee he makes the team. Just because Sean, it seems like he's always has been a huge proponent of liking the room, right? So I would venture to guess that he would be okay with a room of Estime, RJ Harvey, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Blake Watson. Like I would venture to guess he actually likes that kind of room, right? So who knows? Like you do bring in Nick Chubb, it would be beneficial for the room as a vet, but there's no guarantee you would make the team and be there for week 1.
Are you guys convinced that Estime is safe on this team? I just, when they were saying that that there's been conversations with them saying that they want him. What changed between him being benched in the biggest game in the last 10 years and now? Like why? I'm just not convinced that he's the answer. And Mike, I'm all on board with getting Nick Chubb in there. I think the guy, if what's left for veteran running backs, their injury concerns, I would rather have him than some of these other injured guys, based on the talent when he's healthy. If you put an injured guy versus an injured guy versus an injured guy, I think he stands out the most. And Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller yesterday were talking about a possibility of Chubb going to the Raiders, and I think I wouldn't be too thrilled with that arrangement.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if we'll ever actually know why Estime was benched, but my assumption, just looking into things, is that it was more of a confidence issue, right? Like you don't want him to go out there and fumble the ball and lose confidence and then just be shattered for next season. I don't ever think there was a talent problem. It was a confidence problem, which is why I think they sat him out.
So I found that the best way to build his confidence is to bench him again in the biggest game, right?
Well, what happens if you were to go back out there, put the ball on the ground again, and then he runs out of trust, he runs out of confidence. Yeah. It's just not a good situation. So I agree. That's why I think they ultimately did it, was to just preserve him for the following seasons. He's only 21, 22. He's still a kid.
Well, it's one of the reasons why you don't.
Sorry, from everything we've heard and seen is that they're very confident in Estime. They're very excited about Estime on this team.
Well, and I think that it's because he's 21. You don't want to shatter that confidence, right? And because he is so young. I think for me, this was such an interesting offseason for how they were going to attack the offseason of running back, because if they were to draft Quinshawn Judkins, right? If they're going to draft Judkins, if they're going to draft Ollie Gordon, if they're going to draft Damian Martinez, right, from Miami, at that point, I'm probably saying to myself, are they really confident in Estime? Because they all needed like an RJ Harvey stylistically in that room, right? Like they all needed a Harvey, they all needed a Nash and Genty, you know, they needed a Trevion Henderson in that room.
Right.
So now that they added no one, I think it's also, you know, we've also, you know, said that, you know, it's not about what Sean Payton has said. It's about what Sean Payton and the Broncos do, right? And he proved that, you know, them bringing in Pat Bryant, but also speaking up about how much he loves the room. It's kind of twofold in that. Like he believes in that wide receiver room, and he also very much believes in that running back room. And I think that if there is one game, and granted it was one game, if there's that one game where we should be very optimistic about it, it's that Chargers game. And it's not just you know, that Chargers game from Estime side of things. Blake Watson looked incredible. You give me that Blake Watson on that Thursday night game for what looks to be a little bit more touches. You don't need to draft Brashard Smith, who went over to the Kansas City Chiefs, because you had Brashard Smith at home. So, like, I think that what the Broncos have at least allowed themselves with, despite the fact of not taking anyone, is they still have a very versatile room. You have Audric Estime, who can be, you know, your ground and pound, almost like A.J. Dillon type of back. Then you got R.J. Harvey, you know, who can be almost like your do-it-all, if you will, Swiss Army knife running back. And then you have Blake Watson, who might be the same thing, but you have running back wide receiver capabilities for versatility to do, you know, both. Jaleel McLaughlin, unfortunately, is kind of like that weird, you know, one of that room where it's like, well, what does the future hold for him at that point?
He's almost that odd man out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we have gone through UDFAs. We've gone through rookie minicamp. We've gone through the draft. Potential holes in the roster. I will say this. Out of every season for the last, 9 seasons, 10 seasons, this is probably the most optimistic I have seen Broncos country. And there's also not all, of media that is actually starting to give the Broncos some props. Yeah. I think we're slated at 9+ wins this year.
9.5, is that what I saw?
And I think so. And then there's some that are saying that we're going to be the 3rd spot in the playoffs, that we're going to be the 4th spot in the playoffs. Like, there's so much optimism that I'm not used to it.
Yeah. We have Bo Nix to thank for that.
Yep.
We have Bo Nix to thank for that.
All right. So now we're going to go through the schedule. Obviously, this is very early. We haven't had any mini camps or OTAs or anything like that yet, but we're going to go through the schedule and kind of give our early predictions on what we think is the season's going to turn out to be. So
I like how Mike calls this early to make an assessment, but he's already determined that Travis Hunter's a bust. Good. Yeah.
Oh, I figured that out.
Double standard.
I figured that out.
Glenn.
Go check out these videos of him running around.
Oh my God.
What I'm talking about.
Good
Glenn's
Lord.
like, it's one video, one route. No.
Mundungus Dov Kleeman Creevy over here.
I know. I hope Ian Rappaport kicks your ass into Starbucks. That's all I have to say.
All right, so we're gonna go through the schedule and give our predictions. I'm gonna keep track of mine, you keep track of yours, and then we'll kind of give everybody our overall takes at the end. So game 1 against the Tennessee Titans, which Glenn and I are going to. Woohoo!
All right.
Yeah, we'll see you guys there.
That is a dub. You know, to what is it? To Jameis Winston eat a W.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So everybody win on that one?
For sure.
Yeah, I don't think it matters who they start at quarterback either.
Oh, and I frankly, and I know it's week 1, I will be majorly disappointed if the Broncos actually don't win. Like if they win by like a single touchdown, I will be very disappointed. Like I will just say that.
This should be a blowout.
Let's hope so. Week 2 at the Colts.
Another game where that's eating a W, and another game where I will be a little bit disappointed if the Broncos don't win by, at least 2 scores.
Yeah, I'm a win on that one too.
Yep.
Week 3 at the Chargers.
I have that as an L.
I have that as a win, actually.
I do too. Just because it's so early in the season, it usually takes the Chargers a little bit to figure it out. Plus, to be fair, did they even add a whole lot to the roster?
Running back.
Yes, they did.
They
Hampton, Najee,
some positions.
Trey Harris.
I still have question marks about the clutch factor of this Chargers team, in particular their quarterback, but I think that Denver is going to split with the Chargers, and I think that early game is going to be kind of a feel each other out kind of situation with Peyton and Harbaugh, see what each other has with each of their respective teams. And that Week 18 game is probably going to be really big in terms of playoff seeding later on. So I think Denver's probably going to lie down a little bit in this one. Well, not lie down per se, but I don't think they're going to be playing their best ball in this one. I don't think either team is by this point. So I think that they're going to either lose this game or the one that follows it. I don't think they're going to lose both of them, though.
Yeah. What and I will say the Broncos, for some reason, have struggled at times at SoFi as well. So, yeah, just but I agree with Gage. Maybe to play spoiler a little bit for the very last game, but I do have them splitting.
Okay. Week 4 against the Bengals.
That is actually a W.
Win.
I think the fact that the Broncos defense is looking so good on paper, it's early in the season and it's at home, get an opportunity to redeem themselves against the Bengals. I do see this as a win also.
And that the Bengals defense is looking so
terrible
bad on paper. We don't know what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson.
And it's early in the season. I mean, I think he plays, but like it's early in the season where, given his contract stuff and the potential holdout, et cetera, it is early to where he might not be in that game.
Mm-hmm. James Palmer did tell Kay Adams that he believes that Hendrickson will be will be back with Cincinnati.
Will or won't?
That he will be a Bengal this year.
Okay. I mean, at this point, Cincinnati has to make a complete swing because Trey Hendrickson has made it clear where he stands and where the Bengals stand right now, and they are very far apart from each other.
Yeah. All right, then we go into Week 5 at the Philadelphia Eagles.
My first loss of the year.
L on that one.
So,
but I think it's close.
I will say this. This game's interesting to me. I think it's a loss, but I think it's interesting because, and the reason why I say that is because the Super Bowl hangover is real. Like, it is a very real thing. I think had it be at home, I do think it's a dub. Actually, I do think it's a W. But I say that in sense of Super Bowl hangover. That would I be surprised if the Broncos actually stole one in Philadelphia? Absolutely not. So I will say though, one of the reasons why I have it as a loss is Philly always starts their seasons red hot. Always start the season red hot. But like I said, I don't know. I would not be surprised if it's a dub.
For me, this is just like a matchup thing. I think that Philly is the best trench team on both sides of the ball, and I think that Denver's defensive line might not be able to compete with Philly's absolutely dominant offensive line. So that is probably what separates it for me. If you can go into Philadelphia and keep this within one score, be competitive throughout the full 60-minute contest, I will call that a win because that shows that you can compete with the best team in football. And it might not be the first time that the Broncos see Philadelphia this year. You never know, man. If Denver can make it to the Super Bowl, Philly might be waiting for him again. So this might be another one of those kind of get a feel for each other situations. But Philly stacks up better on both sides of the ball, I feel like, especially where the game is won, the trenches.
All right, Week 6 at the Jets. Win.
Dub.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, these next 3 games are W's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a little mini win streak going here.
It's going to be cool too. Is I'm sure the Broncos are going to stay East Coast and then go to England a little bit early after that Eagles game, so they're going to get a chance to really spend some time and hang out together. And I mean that worked out last year when they had that week and they stayed together on the East Coast, and I think it's just going to set them up for a nice little run, like Cam was just saying.
And funny enough, the Jets were involved in that last year because they stayed at the Greenbrier.
And it rained the whole time.
And it rained. Hopefully, there's not a monsoon, in London.
Then we got the Giants.
W.
Dub.
Now the question, maybe the real question is, who's starting a quarterback for the Giants at this point?
Shook.
Giants, not the Saints.
I mean, I think it's right.
I think it will be Dart at this point. I think that it will be Jackson Dart. Maybe Jameis, but I don't think it's going to be Russell Wilson.
Really? Seven games in, you think Dart already gets the start?
I think he starts from the beginning.
He might.
Well,
I think there's a chance Winston's traded. So Winston's off the table. So I think it's going to be Wilson or Dart.
Yeah, I think there's a chance Wilson gets traded. I think that when we get into camp, it's going to be very apparent that Wilson is the third best quarterback on that roster.
Fourth, actually, because DeVito might actually outplay him.
No, they already dumped him. No, he asked for a trade.
Like legit though, like I think Russ could be on the chopping block here. Nobody's having that conversation.
Maybe.
Of course not. Because nothing is ever Russ's fault.
Nope.
Then we have the Cowboys.
Give me a fat dub there, man.
Same.
Big fat dub.
Yeah, that's going to be a blowout. We own the Cowboys, and the ownership is going to continue. The Cowboys are going to be one of the worst teams in football next year.
Mm-hmm. And then it's week 9 at the Houston Texans. I have an L on that one.
I do as well.
Yeah, same. The run comes to an end.
I actually have the winning streak continuing further into the bye.
Spicy Cam.
Wow. Then we play the Raiders. Dub.
Dub.
At home.
Yep, that's the home one. Yep, that's the dub.
And then we go right to Chiefs at home.
Dub.
And that one dub too.
So where are you guys at the bye? I'm 9-2 right now.
I haven't been keeping track just because I know what my record is at the end.
Yeah, I'm 9-2.
Cam might be 10-1.
I think I've got 3 losses or 2. I've got either 2 or 3 losses.
No, because I think I'm 9-2 because I had losses to Chargers and Eagles.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I have Chargers and Eagles. I can't remember if I had one more after that. I think I don't. Or no, Texans. So I have 3 losses.
So negative.
And then right out of the bye, we are at the Washington Commanders.
That is an L.
That is an L, unfortunately.
Wow,
we lose the Dan Quinn Bowl.
I've got a dub on that one.
Wow, so you do love Sean Payton.
No, I still love Dan Quinn.
Hell hath frozen over.
No. This confirms that you actually love Sean Payton more than Dan Quinn. If you're predicting a win of the Broncos over your love child, Dan Quinn, that
No, I'm predicting that Denver has a better roster than the Commanders.
That's fair.
Yeah, eat it, Cam.
But
Yeah.
it sucks to say it, but the Washington Commanders have a better quarterback.
Excuse you.
Wow.
Hey, I love Bo Nix.
Nix had a better rookie year.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
he did.
he didn't.
I think it's actually more equal than
Daniels
people think.
had more.
It's close. I'm with you. It's a lot closer than people are giving credit for. I think they're both franchise quarterbacks, but I think Jaden Daniels is like cream of the crop, elite of the elite.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then we go to Vegas to play the Raiders. I have a sweep of the Raiders.
Same.
I have an L there, unfortunately. I think that this Raiders team is going to be a lot better than people are giving them credit for. I think that they're going to be able to run the ball. That's what Pete Carroll wants to do. Geno Smith, in my opinion, is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. This Raiders team is going to be a thorn in people's side, and I think they're going to get Denver at least once.
Well, I've said it from like right after the draft. I think that every team in the AFC West got better, but no team got so much better that they jumped over another team, right? So even if the Raiders are better, everybody else got better. So it's still right where it was last year.
I still think they're the worst team in the division for sure.
Yeah, and I do think the Chiefs fall down to like 2 or 3, but that's because of the whole Super Bowl loss and just all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have the Packers.
Yeah.
I actually have that as a loss.
I do too.
I have a win on that one.
I've got win because it's at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the crowd noise is going to be a big factor there. And I just think that Denver might be a little bit better than Green Bay is in the trenches. So, yeah, I'm going to give that one to Denver, but it's going to be a really tough one.
That'll be an interesting one because the Packer fans do travel well.
Really well.
And I've been to games at Mile High where against the Packers, and there was a heavy load of green jerseys. But if the Broncos are so hot, it'll be very interesting to see if the season ticket holders are actually going to be dumping their seats for some of these games, maybe to help pay for some of the season tickets, even if they're local. But I think Gage is right. I think the stadium is going to be absolutely rocking, and their the fan presence is probably not going to be as high as it has in the past.
Yeah, because in 23, that Packers game was loaded with green and gold.
It was crazy, and I think the reason why for me it's going to be a really tricky game, and probably why I have it as an L at this point is it's later on in the season, and Green Bay. They're coming back, but this is going to be a much different Jordan Love than they will be facing than what they did in 2023. When the one that they faced in 2023, was not the same quarterback who finished that season, and so I think that it's going to be a dogfight. And Matt LaFleur always has his teams really well prepared, like incredibly well prepared. So it's going to be a dogfight, and so right now I kind of have as an L. But the next game, which is going to be a game that I'm going to be going to, which is going to be a fun game because it's going to be a game where I think Travis Hunter actually plays pretty well, gets a touchdown maybe, shuts up Mike in the process.
I don't think a touchdown
against PS2. Are you high?
Who said he's going to be on PS2?
Hey, if he sucks,
apparently he's the greatest receiver in the NFL, so PS2 will be on him, right?
No, he'll be on Brian Thomas.
Right, so this next game is going to be Cortland Sutton's best game of his career with at least 250 yards because he's lining up against Travis Hunter. So it is the Jacksonville Travis Hunters.
I have that one as a win. Denver is a better team in the trenches. Jacksonville is a much better team than they were last year, especially from a coaching perspective. God, they were the worst coach team in football last year, in my opinion. The run game was horrible. The offensive play calling was putrid. And they made a really good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence get shit on every single week because he had to take the brunt of that blame. I'm sorry, man. I think that Jacksonville is going to be a really good team. This is going to be a really tough game, but it's going to come down to trench play where I think Denver is better. So I have the Broncos winning that game, but it's going to be tough.
Oh, I have them blowing them out.
Of course you do.
But that's not a Travis Hunter thing. That's a Jags thing. Like, I have the Broncos blowing them out.
The sneaky part about the Jags is they have a really good roster, actually. They do have a good roster. Mm-hmm. So it's one where it can kind of sneak up on you if you're not careful.
Yep.
We have their tight end, though. Just remember.
Yes, we do.
And just to shout out the best viewers on streamboo.com. Week 17 at the Kansas City Chiefs. I have this one down as a loss. I think that the Chiefs at this point are going to be fighting for a playoff spot, and I think they're going to come with their best.
Can you imagine, though, like how incredible it would be if this is a Christmas Day game and it's a primetime game? But with it being week 17, like let's just say that the Broncos and Chiefs have it all sewn up. How boring of a primetime game against the Chiefs would that be? So, like, you have the Broncos and the Chiefs locked up for a playoff spot. So, in essence, the Broncos and Chiefs could theoretically sit players for their Week 17 game on a Thursday night football of Christmas Day. That would be boring for so many viewers.
That would be honestly funny, though, because Amazon would be pissed off. Paying all that money for what they're hoping is a premium primetime game in the AFC West. Yeah, or imagine if this is the year that Patrick Mahomes gets hurt.
Yeah.
I don't want it to happen. I want to make perfectly clear. I don't ever want a player to get hurt. But
you're not Bill.
Historically,
only
there's always at least one year. Peyton Manning missed a season. Tom Brady missed a season. It's probably going to happen at least once. Why not this year?
Who's the backup?
Gardner Minshew.
And the third stringer is a well-known guy. Who was it? It was
it still Wentz?
Zappy.
Bailey Zappi, yeah.
Oh, God. I will never forget that Christmas game.
Speaking of Christmas.
Yeah, speaking of, against the Patriots, Bailey Zappi coming in and carving us up.
It's the reason. It's probably the main reason, aside from the Rams game, that I hate Christmas games.
But we got Bo Nix because of it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So
things happen for a reason. Yeah.
Last game of the season, we got the Chargers, and I have this one down as a loss because I think Denver sits their starters because they already have a playoff spot locked.
I have it as a W.
I have us sweeping the Chargers, so I have a dub.
Give me a dub there. I think Denver might need that game, so give me a dub.
All right,
I'm at 12-5.
Tally everything up. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm 11-6.
I'm 13-4.
Okay, so Glenn
has us going undefeated.
13-4. Cam, where were you at?
I think 12-5.
And Gage, where were you?
11-6.
And it's one of those things where, like, you're looking at the schedule and all the games the Broncos nothing looks like a blowout, right? So all the games look feasible. You almost have to find losses just so it doesn't sound so ridiculous when you're giving your prediction.
Yeah.
Oh, we could go 17-0. That's fine.
We're 17-0 until we ain't.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, Rich A, I shot an 87. I see that in the comments. I shot an 87.
Is that good or bad?
It is really good. First time out, and I shot an 87.
So how did the back nine go?
It was the full score, 87 for the full score.
Wow,
yeah. With like little over or less than 10 penalties and 1 mulligan.
Glenn's like he shot a 174.
Yeah, I don't understand.
It would have been an 86 if it didn't bounce off the clown's nose on the last hole.
Yeah.
Die, clown!
I was this close to a hole in one. I hit a tree, it bounced over, and then it hit the pin or hit the flag, and then went straight down and hit the cup and bounced out of the cup. So it was
out of the cup.
It was like the Nuggets trying to shoot a basket the other night.
Yeah,
just kept bouncing in and out.
And there was also one hole, where I hit I piped a drive, middle fairway, and while the ball was sailing through the air,
dude, many dirty thoughts in my head right now.
And while the ball was sailing through the air, 450 yards, a hawk went and stole the ball midair, thinking it was some other animal, and he stole the ball. you know, and unfortunately I couldn't finish the hole. So I had to like, so I gave myself, you know, because I wasn't in the best mental capacity. So I gave myself a birdie on that hole.
A literal birdie.
I mean, to be fair, I try to hole in one every hole, so it's fine.
Well, you play putt more often than not, so.
Sure, that's where I was going with that. All right, so I've got all of the predictions down in the chat in every social media. But looking it over, let's say we hit any one of those three, right? 13-4, 12-5, 11-6. We're in the playoffs no matter what. I think 13-4 or 12-5 gets us to the top of the AFC West. I think 11-6 gets us like second.
Where it actually gets crazy is like the actually 13-4, maybe 12-5. You're talking about like, unless you're like with what happens with the NFC North again, like you're talking about that you're in a really good position for you to get like at the very least.
You're talking like top two
or three, like 3 seed, like, you know. Yeah. So I think the reason why I have it as 12-5 is like that's my ceiling. Because like remember the overarching theme last year was like when you look at the ceiling, it was 10-7, right? Was the ceiling, and the floor was 7-10. Because the optimism is so vastly different to a degree, like the ceiling and the floor, people actually might be a little bit more consistent on the floor than on the ceiling. Because like, you know, and that's where it's like, you know, and you know, Mike and, you know, and Glenn, you have it at 13. I have it at 12. I don't know if the ceiling for Gage would be 11-6, but like for me, like the ceiling would be 12
I think the floor is 11.
No, floor is not 11. Floor
13 is probably my ceiling. My floor, honestly, is 9.
Yeah, floor is 9 for me. 8 or 9.
I don't know. I think I'm still going because I want to go a game above last year, right? So you got to go with 11.
Sure,
I can't quite go down as far as 8, but I can definitely go down to 9.
But they still have a bit of a hard schedule this year. Still,
I'm scanning through and I'm like, I got to find. I guess you just throw out the floor could be 10, but now I got to find three games I thought would be wins.
I think you can go back and forth on that Packers game. You can go back and forth on the first Chargers game. You can go back and forth maybe on the Dallas game.
Bengals I think Joe Burrow.
Or the Bengals. So there's maybe 4 games in there that's a maybe. I think, again, you know, by the predictions that we have out there, I think they win those games. But, I mean, there are – the cool part is that there's only like a debate on 3 or 4 games. Like we're not sitting here going through every game like, ooh, I don't know. Like there's only 3 or 4 where it's like, well, we might lose, but I doubt it. Instead of like, oh, they're going to kick the crap out of us.
So I asked this question on our schedule release to the guys, and I'll ask you guys the same question. Obviously, what do you guys think is the trap game for this year? So, right, because that's a very famous conversation.
I just closed the fucking thing out.
What would you say is a trap game for them? Obviously, if you guys didn't get a chance to see, my trap game would be Jacksonville because of the game, with Kansas City that following week on Christmas. So, what would be your guys' trap game?
By definition, it has to be a team that I'm underestimating. So, Dallas, I guess. Because they could, in theory, beat Denver, but I don't know. I don't really see it. So I'm going to probably say Dallas could be the trap game.
Can you have a trap game like super early in the season?
Like the Colts? I mean,
that's where I was going.
Is there any chance that they could actually win? I don't think so.
They might be pissed off because of what happened last year. So
Jonathan Taylor certainly would.
Didn't they take a quarterback or sign a quarterback?
Yeah, Daniel Jones.
Danny Dimes, baby.
So, well, and that's where I was going was the Colts. Like the Colts, I could see as a trap game, but that's why I was asking. Like, can you have a trap game at the second game of the season?
Well, and so like my mind at first went to like Jets and Giants, but like you'd have to have a good team there You know, like between the Jets and the Giants, and the Jets and Giants are just not good teams. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess divisionally you could say Raiders with the Chiefs before the bye, but you know, I still think it's Jacksonville as the trap game.
I mean, if you lose to the Jets or Giants, I mean, that's disaster. Like that's like bogeying a par 5 when the other, you know, when the field is averaging birdie. I mean, you've really screwed yourself at that point.
The Jets is Glenn, right? New coach?
Yeah. By the way, can we all take a moment and appreciate Gage's frozen frame right here in the bottom right? Like,
yeah, man.
Like it is very much the puzzled.
It's like one of those TV show intros where they like turn into the camera.
Like when it's not like in the 1980s.
Yeah.
You know what he looked like that in that pose, that his voice would sound like Crush from Finding Nemo. You know, the turtle.
Feel it away, bro.
Put him back up there if he's still.
Yay!
Stupid internet.
No, we were talking about how much we appreciated the.
Oh, was that?
Oh yeah, you were.
Yeah, you literally freezed at that moment. Like,
oh Christ,
Mike, your description of like a 1980s like sitcom opening, that was so perfect. Right? It was so perfect where they froze. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Or when they do like the David.
Yeah, like when they're introducing the cast. Yeah, they're like maybe like for Family Matters or like Full House or something like that.
Hey.
Good times. There we go.
The hat made the pose too, I think.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think that the one part of it for me that is imperative for the Broncos, and I saw it in the comments, but they have to start red hot. Like there is a very realistic chance that the Broncos are 4-0 into the Eagles game. Like there is a very realistic. So, because like if they are 4-0 into that point, like you are talking about a Broncos team, and regardless if you're 3-1, 4-0, like you're talking about so much confidence going into that Eagles game on the road. You know, like where you're feeling pretty confident at that point, and specifically with how Sean Payton is with the team and everything going forward, like they will be, I would hope, ready to go on the road for Philly.
Absolutely.
Especially after we got just manhandled the last time we were in Philly. That would be so sweet. Sweet redemption.
Mm-hmm. I'll never forget that game. That was the worst.
That was almost as bad as the Dolphin game.
Yeah. That one
felt like that.
Which Dolphin game? Like both of the last
70
two games.
plus, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question then. Which game was worse or hurt the most? The Dolphins 70-point game or the Seahawks-Broncos Super Bowl game?
Oh,
Super Bowl.
It's I don't think it's even close. It's Super Bowl 48. Like but that said, like, you know, it's proof that you have season defining games, you know, or franchise altering games. The difference between the Broncos Dolphins game and the Broncos the Seahawks game of Super Bowl 48 is that was a franchise altering loss.
Yeah.
And the loss of the Dolphins was just a season altering loss because, you know, they went on that five game winning streak. Defense was playing probably the best 5-game stretch anyone had ever seen, you know, so yeah, you're just talking about a season altering loss versus a franchise.
Yeah, for me, I look back at that game and I look at it fondly, and here's why. Because that was rock bottom for us. That was us hitting the low point. We could not get any lower, and it was only up from there. And that was something that needed to happen because it led to a lot of personnel changes. It led to a lot of evaluations. And the Broncos have taken an upward trajectory since that game, where the Dolphins have taken a downward trajectory since that game. So I look at that game and look at it as the game that made the Broncos relevant again, honestly.
You know what's interesting, Gage, is what you just said about that Dolphins game actually applies to the Seahawks Super Bowl. My wife and I went to that game. We were able to drive to New Jersey. And when that snap went over Peyton's head for a safety in the first play of the game, I mean, it was disastrous. But the Broncos still had the best offense at that point of all time. And so there was still hope. And I remember, like, after the halftime show, I go to hit the bathroom because and they're piping in the broadcast, and I'm standing at the urinal, and Percy Harvin runs it back for a touchdown. I'm like, all right, it's over. But what ended up happening after that game is we changed our whole targets from free agency, and all of a sudden said defense is winning this championship. We just saw a team win with the one of the best defenses of all time. And so that's where free agency kicked in, and there you go with 2015.
And that is your argument for that Dolphins game, by the way, for being a franchise-altering game. You could say Vance Joseph-altering game if you want to say.
That was the insanity of the Broncos, like in that 3-year span, right? Mm-hmm. Like in 2013, the Denver Broncos had the best offense ever. There's not even a question. It's really not even that close. Mm-hmm. Best offense ever. We lose the Super Bowl and turn it around, and in 2015, we have the best defense ever. There is some debate. There's some debate, but best defense ever. Like, you went from this best ever to this best ever in 2 seasons.
And you know what's crazy? And we have this conversation, and maybe it's due for another one of those what ifs pods. But that 2012 team, like the first year with Peyton, is one 1 year where that might be the best Peyton Manning team he's ever had to not win a Super Bowl. So had they gone past the Ravens, I am very confident in the fact that they are they're in that Super Bowl with a really good chance to win. And in that same season and in that same vein, you're talking about Brendan Holiday in probably a completely different career arc and roster career arc for Holiday, because he was so dominant in that game against the Ravens that who knows what happens with him going forward in the postseason. And then, of course, getting offensive snaps. Is he the new Tyreek Hill before Tyreek Hill or Deshaun Jackson? Like, you're talking about him completely different, and so on and so forth. But that 2012 team, Raheem Morrier, was probably the best team that Manning's ever had to not win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
David Youngkin's got a question for us before we head out of here. Which 2 running backs will be 1 and 2?
It'll start out, I think, as Audric Estime is 1 and Harvey is 2, but it will not end the year that way. Harvey will be 1 and Estime will be 2.
I think it's going to kind of be like a 1A, 1B situation. And I'm going to say that Harvey is going to be 1A, Estime is going to be 1B.
I'll go Harvey and Nick Chubb.
Oh.
1 and 2.
Wow. The Estime hate.
Speaking of the Ravens, though, by the way, that's an intriguing opening game for them this year. Bills and Ravens. Yeah. So one of the top teams in the AFC is going to be 0-1 to start this year.
Yeah, and hopefully, if the Ravens win that game, it won't be by a toenail.
Yeah. David says, for me, I'm still not all in on VJ with all these players. It's some head-scratching play calling. This scares me. This is what I have to keep going back on Vance Joseph, right? Like, I love Vance Joseph. I think he made the best play calls that he could with the players that we had.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it wasn't a coaching problem. It was a talent problem. And I think we've now fixed that problem.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you.
That said, though, this is a important year for Vance because they are throwing.
This is the year we'll know.
This is the year we will know what the cards will be holding for Vance Joseph in the future of Denver. Because if you're reading between the lines and you're in the coaching staff and, gifting between, Jim Leonard and Zach Streif and, a bunch of other, but specifically Jim Leonard, assistant head coaching title. Like, it seems like they're trying to make sure that Leonard does not leave that building. And Leonard would most definitely be your next defensive coordinator with Vance. So it is definitely one of those years. And if he doesn't pan out, yeah, you're talking a new DC.
For me, one of the worst things this team could do is go back to the soft, squishy zone coverage scheme.
Squishy.
Yeah, like, listen, I don't have a problem with Vic Fangio running his own scheme because he knows when to call cover 1, cover 3. He knows when to blitz. But a lot of these Fangio imposters out there that are just trying to replicate his quarter shells, and they call freaking too high coverage on rundowns, and they just get run down their throat all the time. That's a problem that I have. And Vance tried to do that at the beginning when he took over as DC here in 23. He's evolved away from that to more of a single high cover 1, cover 3 scheme. I don't want to lose that. So if there's any chance at all that we lose that, I am keeping Vance, even if the defense regresses, because that is such an important thing to keep that core of that scheme, the single high safeties, all of that. I want that to stay how it is.
Right, and when you look at the draft picks and the people that were brought into the defense for the Broncos, you're thinking man coverage. Like that's what the majority of them excel at, is man coverage. So I'm assuming that's where we're going. I would hope so. We'll figure it out and see how it works.
But then that said, the Baltimore game, they dropped back and they played a ton of zone, and Lamar picked them apart through the air. And then they ended up in the second half getting run on by Derrick Henry. So, yeah, man, it's just kind of one of those things where you have to be able to have the guys to match what you want to call defensively.
Right, and a lot of that was lack of inside linebacker play or talent, lack of a second or third option at corner at the time, a lack of a highly talented safety. Nothing against it. Like, I'm not saying they're not talented. Like PJ Locke, for example. I'm not saying he's not talented.
You're talking about, though.
But when you look at like PJ Locke compared to like Uafunga, right? Like there's not there's not really a comparison there, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Talanoa Hakuna Matata.
And then another one I'd say is, and this is still a problem for the Broncos, they need a double gap clogging 340-pound interior defensive lineman.
Yeah, got that guy from Florida, that 450-pounder.
Well, and I will say
he should have a 3-digit number.
Yeah,
425 or whatever.
But one of the benefits that I think where you would have like Jim Leonard as your DC, he's going to give you any look, like, and that's what's so fascinating about it, because he's going to give you a 3-3-5, he's going to give you a 3-4, he's going to give you a 4-3, he's going to give you so many different looks that you're going to be, not thinking straight after the second series. Like it is going to be crazy. So that's where I think I'm probably long term. I will say this, regardless of the fact that, Vance will be, I actually think that there is a very real chance that even if Vance Joseph is his defensive coordinator next year, there is still a real chance that Leonard is your defensive coordinator, just because he's even such a young coach. And the thing I coming back to on Leonard is just look up his Wisconsin story. He was supposed to be the interim head coach. He was shafted, wrongly shafted. And so, like, I would venture to guess he's looking into his coaching cycles as he wants to make sure that he's loyal, if you will. He wants to make sure that he's got stability. And there's no doubt that if you are trusted by Sean, you will stay by his side for as long as you possibly can, because it's the best possible opportunity for you.
Yeah.
Paul Schaefer says he calls himself Huff, our new safety. That's kind of like Gage's nickname, Puff the Magic Dragon.
Fair enough.
In fact, Gage is like, can we end the show already?
Anything else? Anything else that we need to talk about? Anything we missed?
No, I think we actually covered it.
We covered it all.
So,
we didn't have to suffer through Mike's Travis Hunter highlights himself.
Or Travis Henry.
You can't even say his name right. Like, how am I supposed to know he's going to be good if you can't even say his name right?
You are making me thinking about having to do a Travis Hunter film study now, Mike.
Please do, but you have to include the videos from the rookie minicamp.
Sure.
The two plays.
I'll even throw in some of his bad reps to make you happy.
You know what's funny?
That's going to be all of his reps.
But you know what's funny? We were just talking about how rookie minicamps are pointless. And here's Mike over here in the top right, already coming to conclusions because of the player that he saw at Colorado, because he thinks he's a overrated, not the top corner, not the top player. You know, so he's already
not the top corner.
He's already jumping to conclusions. He's already assuming. And you know what people say about people who assume.
The top corner is Barron.
So.
Saying. All right. I think that's going to about do it for us. I am fairly certain we are not going to have a show next week, but we will have a show the week after that because that will be after OTAs have started. So no show next week, show after the week after that. But we do want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat. It's always great when you join and give us your topics, give us your opinions, give us your questions. It's fantastic. And every single one of us had the Broncos with a winning season. So that also is
thank goodness.
Incredible. I know, right? Make sure that you go to the network and check out all the other shows. We have shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the neighborhood on Broncos game days. So make sure you check that out. We love Broncos country. We love the Broncos fans. We love the Broncos. We will see you guys later. Peace out.
Fast lane when I pass in the street. Bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the